some of the guard, and I'm coming in and they're calling me ma'am and saying y'all, and I'm from Boston. Like, you don't have to call me ma'am. And they're like, yes, we do. I'm like, okay, let me just respect your where you're coming from, but you're not going to hear y'all from me.
Hello, and welcome to episode 65 of the BandWagon podcast for the week of July 21st, 2025. On this edition of the program, news and notes from the band world, including a band story about Beyonce, some thoughts about band inspired by the WNBA, a preview involving the number 25, and I finally talk color guard. It's only taken 16 and a half months. I'm sorry. I'm your host, Rob Hammerton. Hello, dear listener. All that and more. And here's that little bit more right up front. As I mentioned in the most recent episode of BandWagon, I indeed did man or person or whatever. I staffed an exhibitor booth at the New England Band Directors Institute, the 3-day clinic held at Keene State University in New Hampshire. In those 2 days, numerous people strolled past the booth, and boy, did I appreciate that my little booth's placement made it so that people moving from the Keene State Student Center's coffee station to the function room in which some very popular sessions were being conducted had to at least glance my way. I feel like I gained a nice number of new listeners, and hello to you if you're listening to this. And I had a number of lengthy conversations with attendees and my fellow exhibitors, conversations which may very well lead to some interesting recorded conversations that you may very well get to hear in future episodes. Also, significantly, NEBDI's current showrunner, Keene State University Professor John Hart, offered me the opportunity to be an exhibitor for 2 days by way of a very generous gesture. Not going to go into detail about that, but the man is, in addition to everything else, a straight shooter and just the right gentleman to carry the NEBDI banner into the future. If you're a band director in New England and you haven't yet taken this professional development opportunity, I've put their website link into the episode show notes on several occasions and will do so again for this episode, so you can visit it, bookmark it, and make your plans for next July. And NEBDI did not pay me to make that announcement. So, refill your water bottles, whoo-wee, and away we go. Let's play the first strain. In this episode's first strain, news and notes from the band world. Dateline, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Credit on this story to the reporting of WTVD, the ABC television affiliate station in Raleigh-Durham. Roosevelt Pratt, Jr., the band director for E.E. Smith High School's magnificent marching machine, has retired after 28 years at the school. Pratt, an E.E. Smith alumnus, became band director in 1996, taking over for his former band director and mentor, Paul A. Russell. Reflecting on his career and on the students he influenced, Pratt said, quote, "I didn't do all this by myself. I did this with the support of them. We did it together in the room to build what we've built in this room. I was just the leader with a whole lot of strong student leaders within it, and it was not me that worked on the field to get any of these trophies. So I just wanted them to know. I'm not saying that Smith is a great program because of me. I'm saying it's a great program because of all the students that had a part in it." In keeping with tradition, the new band director at E.E. Smith will be Adam Sobers, one of Roosevelt Pratt's former students. Dateline, Houston, Texas. Credit on this story to the writing of Cache McClay of the USA Today Network. Pop singer Beyonce's Be Good Foundation has donated $100,000 to Texas Southern University's Ocean of Soul marching band. The donation will support scholarships, recruitment, and retention for band members, as well as enhancements to technology and infrastructure. Texas Southern University's Senior Associate Vice President of Development and Alumni Engagement, Charlie Coleman III, said, quote, "The Be Good Foundation's impactful investment affirms the powerful role that HBCUs play in shaping the next generation of artistic, academic, and cultural leaders. This partnership does more than support the Ocean of Soul. It opens doors for our students to access the arts in life-changing ways." This is not the first time Beyonce has amplified the school and its band members. During halftime of the Houston Texans-Baltimore Ravens NFL game on Christmas Day 2024, more than 200 Texas Southern band members joined her on the field in a performance seen by 27 million U.S. viewers. Dateline, Louisville, Kentucky. Brad Rogers, the assistant director of athletic bands at the University of Louisville, died unexpectedly on July 7th while traveling as a staff member in Europe with the Kentucky Musicians Abroad Tour. Rogers joined the Louisville faculty in 2023, directing the U of L Community Band, instructing the Cardinal Marching and Pep Bands, teaching instrumental courses, and supervising student teachers. Previously, he was director of bands at Oldham County High School in LaGrange, Kentucky, for more than 30 years. A university social media post said, quote, Mr. Rogers was a titan in the band community and was known throughout the state of Kentucky for his dedication to his craft, his constant donation of his time, energy, and care to students, and his deep love for his family. Rogers was a member of the Middle Tennessee State University Band of Blue Hall of Fame. He received awards including Oldham County High School Teacher of the Year in 1991, the National Band Association Citation for Musical Excellence 3 times, and Phi Beta Mu Outstanding Bandmaster in Kentucky in 2012. In 2015, he was named as one of 50 directors who make a difference by SBO magazine. He served as president of the Kentucky Music Educators Association from 2015 to 2017 and was named KMEA's High School Teacher of the Year in 2017. His articles on bands, adjudication, band directing, and the band experience for students have been published in the Bluegrass Music News and other State Music Education Association publications, the NBA Journal, and SBO magazine. And that's news and notes from the band world. If you have a news item you think should be included in this segment, send me a link via email to heybandwagon@yahoo.com. Now we'll take another quick water break, stay hydrated, and meet you on the other side. Hope you'll stay with me. Okay, let's pick it up at the second strain. In this episode's second strain, I'm going to start out with a bit of social media frustration, but that thought will lead to my eventual point in much the same way as an online video clip managed to lead me to my second strain topic in the first place. At the moment, my Facebook newsfeed is up to here with the following things: drum corps drum lines in the lot, teaser clips from Star Trek Strange New Worlds, WNBA videos, cute babies doing cute baby things, highlights from the University of Nebraska's women's volleyball team, ICE deportations filmed by bystanders, and random pages from DC Comics superhero comic books. It's very simple. Click on something once, one time, and the algorithm thinks you would dearly love to see 13 more of something very like that thing. Just once, on an Amazon webpage, I want to see a section that says, people who ordered this item also did not order any of these totally unrelated things. Just a little strategy to kick some of us out of our little internet rabbit holes of the week. Most of the aforementioned subjects are in fact of interest to me. Not sure what kind of looks I would draw from people looking over my shoulder and seeing lots of tall collegiate women delivering many miles an hour worth of volleyball kill shots. But for heaven's sake, that clickbait headline about that Nebraska volleyball game that they held in the University of Nebraska football stadium and sold the place out a couple years ago, I mean, come on. You'd have been curious about that spectacle too. You would have. The Trek and the politics and the band stuff, yeah, that's totally in character for Rob. Move on. All of which is backdrop to my late evening scrolling excursion through Facebook or BlueSky or wherever I was about a week or so ago, when I came to a video of the WNBA phenom, Caitlin Clark. The algorithm thinks I love to see Caitlin Clark videos, and ever since her senior year rampage through the women's NCAA basketball tournament with the Iowa Hawkeyes, it has at least been right about that. I've admired Clark's hoop exploits, never mind the ridiculous long-range three-pointers. It was her passing that first got my attention. Her game has reminded me of one of my favorite NBA players ever, Larry Bird. As good as he was individually, he always made everybody around him better. Clark clearly did that at Iowa, and now with the Indiana Fever, she's doing it again. One of the Iowa Hawkeye recipients of Clark's basketball generosity was fellow class of 2024 player Kate Martin. Now, Clark was... This really is a band podcast. I'm getting there. Clark was destined to be drafted into the WNBA, and was. Martin attended the draft festivities last spring mainly to support her Iowa friend and teammate in her moment of number 1 draft pick triumph, although she had declared herself eligible for the draft too, and she ended up getting drafted herself late in the second round. She spent a year with the Las Vegas Aces. In the WNBA's expansion draft this past spring, the newly formed Golden State Valkyries poached her from the Aces roster. She's a pro, And there are plenty of Iowa and Aces and Valkyries highlight reels that feature Martin quite prominently, even though she definitely started out at Iowa as a supporting cast member. Now, all of that is backdrop to the video that I clicked on last week. Remember that video? The scene was not the middle of a game. It was during the pregame player stretch session before the 2025 season's first meeting between the Indiana Fever and the Golden State Valkyries in Indianapolis, before any but a few of the paying customers had even taken their seats. At midcourt, Caitlin Clark was lying face down, facing away from the camera and toward the Fever's end of the court, stretching and being stretched by a Fever medical trainer. From the free throw line in the Valkyries' end of the court strolled Kate Martin. She reached down and tapped Clark on the shoulder. Clark lifted her head and looked around, saw that the shoulder tapper was her old college friend, and swiftly abandoned her pregame warm-up routine. Leapt to her feet, applied a proper bear hug, one that was brief but not perfunctory, full of that "you're busy, I'm busy, we'll have time sometime later, but this is also very important now" vibe. A team photographer rushed over to try to capture the moment just a few split seconds too late, but the wielder of the camera phone in the Valkyries' end of the court had been ready, and so had several paying customers who let out great whoops of appreciation, not about having spotted Clark or Martin, they'd been visible on the court for a while no doubt, but about two former teammates who were clearly not letting a little thing like playing for opposing teams get in the way of their friendship. And I smiled, not just at this nice moment in a vacuum, but because I've been part of that sort of brief reunion meeting moment myself too. In the band world, of course, there can be opportunities just like the one that happened at Gainsbridge Fieldhouse, home of the Fever. Return to your high school or college homecoming game, and at some point in the day, it's likely that you'll tap someone on the shoulder, or they'll tap you, and everything about your school band friendship will come flooding back in an instant. And it will have been forever, or just a few days, since the two of you last met, and time will mean nothing. But the shared memories and experiences will mean everything. Happily, I've seen and experienced the sort of moment that Caitlin Clark and Kate Martin shared, but with one more specific detail lining up. The part about the two former teammates being in different uniforms now. Go back to episode 34 of this podcast from last October and listen to me tell the story of the weekend I took the band from the College of the Holy Cross down south for a football game at the University of Delaware. Not only did my fellow UMass drum major Heidi and I, directors of those two bands, essentially get our bands together for a play date, but a number of those Delaware and Holy Cross band kids had worked together during the previous summer at the old Drum Major Academy, and therefore were able to set a very nice example for the rest of their bandmates when they first met up on that Saturday morning. For that matter, type into the search box on YouTube something like UMass Delaware Band and see what videos come up that are nothing but various people in Minuteman and Blue Hen uniforms acting like they're old friends, because in many cases they are. In a world where we seem to be at each other's throats so often, such a search will be refreshing. And, as the starred thought goes, if we in the band world don't support each other, who the heck will? Football fans historically have looked quizzically at, well, band people in general, but especially band people wearing two different band uniforms but acting like they get along. Happily, nobody saw a Valkyrie and a Fever. A Fever, right? Dang, these pro sports team names that thwart efforts to describe an individual team member. Anyway, nobody saw Caitlin Clark and Kate Martin's brief moment of friendship reminder and thought it was weird. Nope, they cheered. I did too, quietly. And I always look forward to the next opportunity to tap somebody on the shoulder, or be tapped similarly. I'll get that next opportunity about a week from now, and I'll talk about that in a little while. This band thing, it's good for that. All right, after this brief break, I get to, well, tap a friend on the shoulder. But when she turns around suddenly, you always have to be careful to duck the flag she's carrying. Stand by. Okay, let's modulate and get into the trio section. In this episode's trio section, I'm pleased to be joined by one of my very favorite color guard people. I think it's entirely fair to say that, and partly so because we go back a ways, but also because she is knowledgeable and creative, and in the world of be a builder, not a wrecker, she is very definitely a builder. And again, after, 64 episodes of this foolish podcast, I'm going to finally talk color guard, and how I'm going to do that is to ask some leading questions and kind of stand back. So please help me welcome to the program, Chris Sirard. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Rob. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for doing this. As I have been saying to various people now for a little while, at the very beginning of this project, I thought, here are all the topics within the band thing that I can talk about because I don't know squat about them. And I listed off a bunch of things. Some areas I had some idea of it, and other areas it would be dangerous if you put a flag in my hand kind of thing. And it's taken me all this time, but finally, at long last, here we are in the same Zoom room.
Yay!
So we will dig into that. First, I want to open this up with my usual lightning round questions at the beginning, very resume-based, so that people can get a beginning sense of who they're listening to a little bit, if they, for some reason, don't happen to know. So, what's your primary instrument?
Well, I do have 2 music degrees, so my primary instrument is voice, although it started with piano. But in the marching arts world, my primary instrument is a flag.
Did you get involved with weaponry?
Oh, yeah. I was a rifle here at UMass and Winter Guard, but when I crossed a certain age, I stopped spinning the rifle because it's just not worth the pain.
Early in my observation of color guard, frankly, early in my time in a band, I got the impression that people did flag work or they did weapons and they didn't often cross that line. I'm looking at the current state of things and everybody appears to do everything. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it sort of started out, flag was the first thing that came through, but then in the 70s, when rifle lines came in and then eventually sabers, although they took a long time to get to the field, people would specialize. But in the 80s, probably mid 80s, the Singali years, things got all kinds of mixed together. And now, yes, everybody does everything. And you can even be a specialist dancer in drum corps. So you could be a flag, but your specialty is dance line.
So getting us to the middle in the late 80s gets us to where we met, but it also gets us kind of in the direction of the question, how did you get into color guard? What brought you into that?
My sister. She was the color guard captain in Melrose High School, and I was only in 7th grade, but they were looking for some more people. I always wanted to be in the band. I wanted to play the mallet percussion. So, and I knew I could get there eventually, but you couldn't do that in 7th grade, but I could be in the color guard. And at the time, the Melrose High School band was really lucky and were taught by some very talented guard people, including one Peggy Twiggs, who was a very famous guard instructor. Yeah. They didn't stick around, but that was my, my introduction to them. So I started in 7th grade, did it all through high school, and then did not join the UMass marching band my freshman year. Silly girl. Or my sophomore year. But I got back into it my junior year, jumped right back in, and the rest is history.
Okay, so we were 2 years apart at UMass. This is an odd thing, but my first memory of seeing you is very clear. You snuck into a spring concert band rehearsal late in the semester. We were probably being the lab band for conducting auditions, maybe. You were, I don't know, passing a note to Mr. Parks or something. And for some reason, you were a familiar face, even though it was the first time I'd seen you. That makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh, the first time you probably saw me, I weirdly auditioned for drum major, having not been in the band.
I'm not wrong.
Yeah. I don't know what. That was Lori. God, which was Lori's last name? She's Chisholm now.
Lori Nelson.
Yeah. She was Melrose kid, too. She got me into the Winter Guard. And then she's like, oh, you should try for drum major, because I was her drum major in high school. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. Also, I went to DMA. Sure. So silly. But it was my reintroduction to George Parks. And then I almost didn't do band again. But it's Dave Houghton, who you know very well, too, who was the guard instructor before I took UMass. I just ran into him in the parking lot in the summer, and he's like, hey, you're doing band, right? And I couldn't say no to his face. So I said, yeah, sure. And then I go to band camp, and who is the drill writer? Oh my God, that's George Zingali.
Okay.
It was crazy. Yeah. It was one of those things where I think the universe was pointing me in a direction, and I just kept going the other way. And then eventually I got pushed, you need to stay on this. This is your path. You keep getting off the path.
Going back with you as far as I do, I would suggest that path is one that has kept looping you in a spiral back toward Amherst, no matter how much in other directions you took it, which leads me to my leading question. What's your current band-related role? And I can anticipate that story will do some loops as well.
I'm currently the assistant director of the UMass Minuteman Marching Band. What? And have been for 10 years.
Get the commemorative t-shirts ready.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You know, when you think about it, I don't think the spiral is the UMass marching band, Rob. I think the spiral is George Parks and the George Parks way of teaching, which means anybody and everybody, anybody who wants to do it, come on and do it. And we're going to show you how to do it. And then we're going to help you with, socializing with your peers. And we're going to help you with enthusiasm and energy and excellence. And we're going to put all of those things in a very entertaining package. And yeah, so it's just to continue that story. After I graduated, George and Tom Hannum asked me to stay and teach the color guard, which I did for 6 years. So I did that in the 90s. And then I moved away, was gone for, I don't know, 16 years or something like that. But we moved back because my husband got hired at UMass as a professor. And I jumped right back into the UMass marching band. But everywhere I went after that, well, I went to music school, learned how to be a music teacher, but everywhere I taught, it was always the same philosophy. I'm not really a competitive marching arts person. I never really have been. I'm a college band teacher, the kind of college band that UMass is, or the kind of ensemble that, George would teach.
Well, I was thinking about that, partly trying to work out whether I had ever heard about you marching drum corps, and I hadn't, but I wasn't sure I was the person to ask.
No, I'll tell you my terrible, sad story, which is, again, it came up many times in my life where I had either a neighborhood friend who was in a local drum corps, or when I didn't do band here in '86, and Leanne Riley was the guard instructor and she was in cadets and all of this. I just kept missing it. But then my final year, I did go to cadets camps and I was going to be in the guard, but I didn't do it. School was not working out and I needed to stay and do summer school and blah, 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 blah. And that's the year they did Les Mis.
Yes, of course.
It took Top Guard.
Yeah.
So, and then I tried senior corps. I did a senior corps, but no, I think just competitive marching arts, I don't think it agrees with me.
Interesting.
And I know myself better as a person now. And, a lot of it was social anxiety and a lot of it was perfectionism. Like, I don't think I can do that because I think it's going to be too much of a struggle for me. It's perfectionism. So I know that about me now. I didn't know that about me then, but it's okay. I mean, I got in there. I think that what I missed from that, if I had that experience, I would just be a better instructor. I would know more than I do. But everything I've learned, I have scraped together from watching other really good instructors and then kind of melding it with what I know about teaching.
Which gets me thinking in the direction of, don't know whether it was your first stop, but it was a pretty major stop in your early career in guard world and in music education world as well, as the state of South Carolina.
Yeah. So we moved from Massachusetts to South Carolina. My husband went to get his doctorate. He's a professor here now in kinesiology. So that was like a 5-year program. It was not short. And when I first went down there, I was just going to work in financial aid, which is what I did up here. And I went down and met the band director and said, hey, I taught at UMass. And he's like, hey, well, we could really use you. Can you help the color guard out? And I said, sure. And it was a very, very different experience from UMass. So UMass, for those of you who don't know, who listen to Rob's podcast and don't know about...
Somehow have not been showered with stories, yeah.
In the 90s, UMass football was in a different division. And so they had really good seasons and they had kind of medium seasons, but they didn't go to championships. That came right after I left. So it was like very entertaining. The football games were very entertaining and people came and so forth. But it was not big time football. South Carolina was big time. Lou Holtz was there when I was there. Yeah. So it was big time football. What does that mean? Well, that means there's one road into the stadium. And if you don't get on that road and early enough on a Saturday morning, you are going to miss the game. So it was a very long day and the band sits in the end zone. And, at UMass, the color guard leaves the stadium on the second quarter to warm up for halftime. And then they leave again in the fourth quarter to warm up for post game, which is a UMass thing that South Carolina did not do. There's no extra show at the end of those giant Division I games. Oh my gosh. And then the pregame experience. What? So pregame is the stadium is totally full, 50,000 people, totally packed. And they play the Space 2001 right? So the band would play it, but they would first start it on the speakers, and the whole place would shake. And then the jet fighters fly. This is just every game. This is not just a special game. This is their game. The jets fly over. Some guy jumps out of a plane with the football in his hand. I mean, it's huge pageantry, huge. And then the band does their pregame thing.
And all 50,000 people know all the words to everything.
Absolutely. They played, and the pregame didn't change. They play to one side, they turn around, and they play to the other side. Very different from UMass. You know, there's no front ensemble. It's just a very different experience. For the color guard, it was very traditional, which was cool. And they needed a little help. They were struggling a bit before, not the year before, maybe a year or so before. Vincent Thomas was there. He used to teach at those Westchester camps. He's a professor of dance now at Towson, but he is the movement guy for Onyx. He started with Crown. He's a dance educator. So I worked with them, and some of the guard, and I'm coming in and they're calling me ma'am and saying y'all, and I'm from Boston. Like, you don't have to call me ma'am. And they're like, yes, we do. I'm like, okay, let me just respect your where you're coming from, but you're not going to hear y'all from me, which is what I said all the way until I was student teaching elementary school. And the only way you could get their attention is if you said y'all. So I did big time football marching band for a couple of years, and it was very different. And then I just stopped. I did not do color guard for about 15 years.
Which is unthinkable to a lot of us, but go on.
Yeah, because I was doing another thing that I love, which is early childhood music. But so we moved from there, and we went to California, and then we moved to Minnesota, and then we moved to Virginia at UVA. We were at UVA, and a UMass friend, Craig Jennings, was there and teaching a local high school, Albemarle High School. And he was like, hey, can you come and work with the color guard? I'm like, I have not done this in about a million years, but I'm happy to come and help. So yeah, they pulled me back in.
So as mentioned before, you have made it back to Amherst, and you have made it back into the UMass marching fold, and particularly in that moment as the head visual person, the head visual, I presume, designer and certainly instructor. It provides me with an opportunity to get a whole lot more educated about a subject that forever I've looked at and said, it's really cool. I have no idea how you do that, because as a saxophone person, I clip a lyre onto my instrument. I put a flip folder there. I read the music until I memorize it. And I write things like FM8 and MT8 and float 32. And that's how I kind of notate what I'm doing out there on the field. Famously, color guard people, I think this is true, don't get flip folders because where would you put them? And my curiosity is, maybe this is a gigantic topic, I don't know, but is there any way to encapsulate how the heck you teach a color guard?
That's a really great question. And it's one that I like to share with band directors, because they don't always know either. It's by rote. So we learn everything by rote, which means that the learning curve looks very different. Let's talk first about the wind players. They could get their music at any point, June, July, and they have a month to memorize it. And when you're in a college band and you're on this side of the professional staff, you hope that they do come to band camp with their music memorized, because it will make their life easier and everybody else's life easier. But the color guard, they can't do that because their material, their content isn't written until after the drill is written. So first you get the music. That's Ian's job. Ian wrangles the music arrangers. Then those are handed to the drill writers. And the drill writers, do the whole thing, asks all the great questions from all the groups. What do you want to see? What do you envision? How do you want me to stage them? And there are places where we can write. So we know they're going to be standing still here, here, and here. So we can write these sets. But otherwise, we have to see which direction they're moving. Because if you write something, say I'm moving to the right with my shoulders turned to the right and my flag is moving to the right, but the drill has them moving to the left. Now they're either backing up awkwardly or, their hips are in a weird place, blah, 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 blah. It's going to be so much easier for me to, hey, they're moving to the left. I'm just going to totally change, I'm going to move the flag that direction. So we have to wait. So everything is sort of last minute catch up. We get the drill, we write the choreography, doop, 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 as quick as we can, which isn't ideal. The earliest we can get the drill is always better, because then we can write a first draft and a second draft, just like everybody else gets a chance to do. But sometimes it doesn't work out like that. And we're writing really quickly. And how do you teach the color guard? So you start, no matter what we're doing, we start with basic skills. It's all done by rote. We tell them what it is. We show them what it is. We have them work little bit by little bit. So if you say this in music terms, we're literally going by measure. Like, we're going to take 4 counts, then we're going to stop. Then we're going to take another 4 counts, and then we're going to stop. Then we're going to put those 2 measures together. Hey, you got 2 measures. Good job. Then we're going to move on to the next thing. And it's a lot of repetition. So the learning curve it's very slow for the guard at the beginning. And the wind players are like, I know my music. I'm ready to rock and roll. Yeah. But once they get it and they learn it, the ensemble is easy for them, right? All we're working on at that point is timing in the ensemble. Whereas the wind players are still, may still be working on balance, and they're working on, how does that sound here? Articulations. Oh, wow, I'm on this side of the field. It sounds totally different than when I'm on that side of the field. So that's how you teach color guard. It's just a lot of talking. Which is why I always have to have a PA that works, or I get very cranky.
When you talk about writing, is there any kind of an agreed upon notation system for this, or does every designer and instructor go into it with their own homegrown system?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So there are certain moves, say it was the flag, that have names. Okay. And they're names across the board. So if when the flag is straight up and down, and then is straight up, and then the silk goes down, and then it goes back up, and you're moving your hands a certain way, that's called a drop spin. So you could do drop spins, yeah, or you could do cones. So we start out with a basic vocabulary. Okay. I started this. I don't think I did it the first year, but probably the second year when I came back. I changed the way we taught the people that came in. So they come in, and we get a variety of skill levels. We could have a kid coming in who just spent the summer on drum corps, or we could have a kid coming in who never touched a flag before. We always have this range. So we have to balance that of, we can't just leave the poor new person in the dust, because they're here and this band is for everyone. So we're going to train them. And then we need to give the person that just came from drum corps some challenges. Usually it's a leadership challenge, depending on the person. Or there'll be a place in the show where we give them something that's a little bit more meaty. But we always teach a number of skills, and I broke them into stations, almost like a Montessori school. Like, here's your very first station. And our very first station is called Stand There and Look Good. Right? So it's not just attention, position. You need to stand there and you're going to look good. And how does that work? And then your second station might be, here's how you do a drop spin, and your third station. So we would take them and allow them to go basically at their own pace through the stations, because even the kid coming in from a drum corps has to learn the UMass technique. The point of unison and precision in a color guard comes down to your technique. And just like dance troupes, every dance troupe has a different technique. You have the Alvin Ailey, Martha Graham, very different. Balancing, very different, right? So the choreographer decides what is the technique that we're going to use, and we just got to get everybody there. It's slow in the beginning, but then by mid-season, when we have one of those mid-season new productions, they can learn like this. I can say, okay, here it is. Here's your combination. It's 32 counts. Learn that. Great. Now you're going to do 16 counts of drop spins. Now you're going to do that same combination, only turn face the back. So you can texture it and layer it and so forth. You don't want to try to give a college color guard the same number of unique moments as a drum corps or a winter guard. You just do not have time to teach that much and to get it clean with the differing skills levels. Now, if I had a color guard full of students who did drum corps, yeah, man, we could totally do that. But that's not how it is. That's not how we do it here. So we have to try to balance a lot of different things.
Probably 3 years ago now, I got a window into that system when I saw the video you put together that remotely taught a routine to the alumni band's color guard folks. It was neat to watch. Now, what was missing, quite logically, was the establishment of the building blocks, those early stations. But that made sense, since you obviously wouldn't have needed to teach the alumni those basics first. But to see that very demonstration-oriented teaching tool, even out of that larger context, kind of expanded my mind a bit.
Yeah. And we got really good at that over COVID, because we had to teach everything by video, which is really helpful when you already know the skills. It's really difficult when you don't already know the skills. But we did the, Zoom band, we did the best we could in 2020. But from then on, we video every set. So we set our sets just like everybody else in the marching band. Our sets are determined by the drill. So set number 2 is 16 counts. So for the color guard, set number 2 is 16 counts of choreography. We will say, we'll write it, and then we'll video it. Ideally, this is how I like to do it. You video it from the front and you video it from the back, because some people learn, it's easier for them to see it kind of like a mirror, and some people it's easier to watch from behind, like live, just like they would do live.
They're saying right, it's to my left, I understand right, but there are people, and I'm probably one of them, that I'm going to need a split second more to process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then we put all the videos, we have a YouTube channel for the color guard, they're all set there so they can study it. So if they didn't quite get it at rehearsal, they can go and watch the video and go, oh, that's where my hand goes, or that's where that count is, and so forth. So we try to give them as many study guides as possible nowadays, way more than I ever used to. I mean, we just like rep, repeat. It would take forever to learn anything.
And not really any way to work on that on your own in the courtyard of your dorm, or...
No, but just, and I learned this in music school as a voice major. 80% of your time should be spent not singing. This is what my voice teacher told me, because you're just going to tire your voice out. 80% of your time should be thinking, learning the music, studying the music, analyzing what you're going to do, putting in your breath marks, all of that kind of thing. And then you're ready to sing it. I use that philosophy with the color guard. You can study this. You can, while you're on your bed with your phone, like you do, just watch it. And as long as it's in your brain, you at least know the count structure, what it's sort of supposed to look like. It's not all brand new when you're trying to put your flag or your whatever piece of equipment to it.
My mind is both blown a little bit, but also focused nicely. My brain has gone in two different directions at once, and it's great. So now you have been at UMass for, as has been noted, for a pretty good sized decade, and you've been able to put the SIRARD system in place. I mean, over the years, the Guard has always been pretty robust numbers-wise. It was just posted on friendly social media outlet that your Guard this year has cracked 50 members.
Yes. Holy cow. 51. We are 51, and I'm only mildly panicked. Okay, so just for context, even back in the 80s, the Guard was typically 30 to 32 members, right? At some point and this is before I came back, in the 2000s, they jumped up, and they were sort of in the low 40s there for a little bit. When you and I were in the band, it was just around, I think it hit 300 the first year I was in the band, I think.
I missed out on the 300 moment. My senior year was 247, the mighty marching 247.
And then I don't know if we hit it before this, but certainly the year we went to California for the Rose Parade, we hit 400. We were over 400. And we were over 400 last year when we went to Macy's. But the color guard remained, except for that little moment in the 2000s, it remained between 30 and 32. The year after the Rose Parade, we were only 24. It was very small. Wow. People were like, I need a break. We're like, that's fine. And then, they came back. And then in 2019, the Guard doubled in size. We were huge, but not 50. So, and again, same thing. It does go, it's a little up and down, but it was typically in the low 30s. Last year, because of Macy's, we were in the low 40s. And that was sort of expected. I was not expecting 50. Although I would say this is one of those be careful what you wish fors, because when I did my long-term goals in 2015, I was like, I want a Guard of 50. Because I had a friend who taught a high school in Florida, and he had 50 Guard on the field. And I'm like, I want that. And now it's happening, and it's a little bit daunting. But as you say, we have a system in place, and we've known for, I don't know, a month or so that we were probably going to hit 50 because we had an enormous number of returners.
Okay.
Our retention rate is excellent. And that is not me. That's the students. That's the student staff. The color guard captains and the color guard field staff and the color guard ad staff have created, over the past 4 years, I would say, have created this amazing culture where nobody wants to leave. They want to come back because this is their friend group. This is their home. They have fun doing this. They want to be challenged. And it's like, wow, awesome. And it's all support. I was rewatching Ted Lasso. Have you seen Ted Lasso?
I have not. I should.
Oh man, Rob, you would love this show. Ted Lasso is such a positive coach. He's just all about positivity. It's always about friendship and support. And the way that they just absolutely are not afraid to say to their friends, I'm behind you 100%. You're doing amazing. Don't you look beautiful today? It's not a thing. We had friends and we were really close to our friends, and everybody loves their band friends. We had a 50th anniversary of the Color Guard last fall, and generations of UMass Guard people came back because they wanted to be around their friends. But this is a different kind of like straighten the crown kind of crowd, right? That's like a woman thing. You want that woman friend who will come and straighten your crown, not point at you and say, crown's crooked. So that's what this crowd is. So we have this enormous number of returners coming back. And then we have over 20 new members, which is unusual. Mm-hmm. And I keep swallowing every time I think about it. But it's cool. We have a system in place. We have an amazing field staff in place. The only thing that I'm nervous about is the instructional staff, because typically the helpers, my pro staff, are UMass alums. They understand the program. Mm-hmm. When I first started, it was Justin and Anna and Rachel, and Justin was a mellow player who got into color guard in his early 20s. So he came back to teach the guard. Anna was an amazing dancer. She was a guard captain. She understood things. Rachel was our weapons person, and she was a guard captain, so she totally got it. And I had them for a long time, and then they grow up and they fly away. And then most recently, I've had Sean and Beth, who are about to get married, which I'm very excited for them. And amazing writers, and Kat, who was a guard captain and Blessed Sack person. And so I've had them, but they just flew the nest as well, which they need to do. It's like, go explore the world. That's what you should be doing. But I'm like, oh gosh. So the people that are coming to work with me there's one really experienced, but he has not been through a UMass fall really. And then the other one, which is very exciting, is actually a student. He's a sophomore. It's Jesse Walker, who is in Boston Crusaders. And he's been in the Boston Crusaders for 5 years, and he did SAC last year. And he's a very, very talented performer, but he's also an education major. So I'm excited to have him, and he can work on his teaching thing, and he can help them be better spinners and better performers. But it's a little scary on my side, because the list checking, when you're in the band or have been in the band, you know what it's all about. Yeah. You know how much we have to get done in this little tiny window of time, and how much you have to, unfortunately, we can't work on that. We can't work on that. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for that. We got to do this. Oh, and our first performance is the Saturday after band camp. Because that's how it works now. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I'm like about is we got brand new uniforms for Macy's last year. RIP, they survived the rain. We have some bleeding, whatever. But do we have enough? Are we going to be able to fit them? That's like, we'll figure it out. We out here say, wow, what a good problem to have. And you say, exactly. Yes, but no. Yeah. It is sort of a good problem to have until you have to actually get them in uniform. Until you have to solve it. So it's not as if the Guard has become potentially 50 plus people from having been in the upper 20s kind of thing. But does that particular numbers game, does having that many people in a Guard, knowing the football field does not expand, does that create special challenges for staging or for what you write? Definitely. Particularly because the auxiliary for the UMass Marching Band changed last year, and we added the dance team. Last year, the auxiliary, which is the color guard, the twirlers, and the dancers, was 75 people. This year, we're going to be actually not that much different because the guard got bigger, the twirlers got smaller, and the dancers got a little bit smaller. But that's a lot of auxiliary to put on the field. So yes, it changes what the drill writer can do. It's also going to depend on the winds. The winds are a little bit smaller this year, which is typical after a big trip. So the winds are going to be a little bit smaller.
And maybe that conspires to make things a little bit less constricted, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I think that will help a bit. My ideas of how to break this line up. We have 50, right? So we're writing for 50. And how does that work? Are they all going to spin the same thing? No. We're going to have 10 members, what we're going to call the A line, and that's going to be the more advanced spinners. So they get a chance to have a challenge. Then we're going to have 30, which will be the biggest bulk, that they're going to be the B spinners, so that the choreography will be not as challenging as A, but for someone who's been spinning for a while. And then we're going to have 10 spots for people who are sort of brand new to this. And that's a C line. And we've actually never, we did that with rifles and sabers one year, but we've never done it with flag. Because what we found last year with 43 members and about, 5 or 6 or more even members who had not had the same amount of training, they struggled for too much. Like we could have made it easier for them to enjoy the process, to enjoy performing and not worry so much about trying to keep up all the time. So we're going to let them take it a little slower at the beginning of the season this year and learn and get your performance skills under you and, feel successful with the opener. And then in the second number, we don't have to do that. Everybody's going to be at the same level for the second number.
So not strictly speaking a feeder program, because it's not that. And it's not even AAA compared to the majors because they're all going to be on the field at the same time. So it's not as if they're over here working on stuff that folks will never see.
No, exactly. It's like first, second, and third trumpet, right? So you get your screamers, playing the first, and then you have depending on the parts and the harmonies and whatever's going on in the music, but you have your supportive parts in the second and third parts, and then we have to have somebody in the third part who is
qualified to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So there'll be a leader down there, so they're not over there by themselves going, "Ooh, we don't know what's going on." You have to absolutely have strong players on every part. So we're going to try that for this year with this very, very big color guard. One of the concerns that keeps me up, besides, do we have enough uniforms, is the returners. Setting expectations for the returners. Because 2 years ago, 2023, there were only 29 in the guard. It was kind of a smaller guard. Now there's 50. And we were spry and they could do all kinds of different things and we could throw challenges at them and work with them. Last year it was a bigger guard, but we could still give them some challenging bits. Things are going to move much slower in comparison. Okay. We have to move slower so as not to leave anyone behind. It's just the way it is. And in the beginning, the beginning. So setting expectations from day one, I think will be helpful for them so they don't get frustrated that this is not like last year, or I had a much, things move faster, or blah, blah, blah. This is frustrating for me. Well, there's lots of other things you can think about. If the challenge is not coming at you in the moment, there's always something that you could be bettering. You could be fixing your movement line, straighten that leg, point that toe, all that kind of thing. You could be looking to your neighbor and helping them. Right? So you could be bettering yourself as a leader. So there's always something to do.
I can imagine that it would be easier to pitch the idea of one of your vets being placed in the C group. Like, congratulations, you have the responsibility of leading this group and making sure making sure there's no guard left behind. Right. Easier for them to grasp, I would imagine, that particular challenge and that part of the moving slow of it than somebody who's in the B group who may be a fairly confident performer and, yes, have that feeling of we're not moving fast enough. So the challenge there is to keep their brains from having the opportunity to start to grind their teeth.
Well, this is some of the training from George Parks. It's not all about me, right? It's not me. That's me-itis. We don't like that. It's we. So if your motivation for being here is to be challenged as a color guard performer, You're going to be disappointed because we simply do not have the time to do that.
It is not and cannot be a drum corps, right? Yeah.
That's not who we are, right? And we are a college band, and we have to get it right the first time. Drum corps, you have, many weeks to perfect something before you have to show it to a crowd.
To perfect this ridiculous stuff.
Yes, very challenging things. And same with Winter Guard. So you have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of rehearsal time before you get it out there. And then they build from there. That's very different from what we do. You have to get it right pretty much the first time. It's not going to look necessarily perfect on that first game, but we need it to be as perfect as possible, to be as entertaining as possible for the people that are there.
It's add water, stir, and serve.
It's a different job. It's a different acting job. So you have to consider that it's not about me. It's more about the we. How can we together make this entire color guard totally kill it? Where everybody goes, holy cow, look at that color guard.
On August 30th.
On August 30th.
Because there's an audience that does not have the understanding, to be frank, to be able to say, well, it's early.
Indeed. Exactly. So then the impetus is on the choreographers. We have to write with that in mind. How quickly can we teach it, and how quickly is it achievable? There's formulas for it. We try very hard to make that opener very accessible, but give them a little bit of meat, a little bit of something interesting. The second production typically is, at least lately, is a classical number. And that's typically one where the guard can get a little meatier. We use weapons, rifles and sabers. And then the percussion feature, I guess if there's a Sirard signature, it is that I always use a prop in the percussion feature because we always have this much time to learn it. But also because it's fun. It's fun. So, we've used streamers, we've used hula hoops, we've used juggling pins, we used ropes, we used these fan things, balls and blankets last year when we did Island Magic. So it's just a way of getting an entertaining piece out there as quickly as possible, where they don't have to think so much because we already had a really meaty second production and they still have to work on that opener.
Before I don't want to finish up, but time is finite here. Let me offer up some of the slightly less strictly resume-based questions that I tend to wrap these things up with. I had to rewrite them, partly because I knew that your primary instrument was something that, let's just say, you don't have to tune. The first one that I always ask is, what's one of your favorite pieces of band music that you've performed? Which means it could be on an instrument, but it's much more likely to be guard-oriented, because what have we been talking about for the last however long?
That I've performed? I've taught more than I've performed.
I'm willing to Kobayashi Maru this question, whatever.
Yeah. If I wanted to hit both roads, like that I performed it and I taught it, Festive Overture. That first time with that George Zingali drill, and me being like, oh, I guess I'm in the band now. But it was really, really fun. And we did it in 2019.
Is there a piece of music that you haven't performed or written something to that you would like to? Something you'd suggest to the fellow you report to?
Yeah, he asks every year. He's really good about that. He's like, share if there's anything that you wanted to do. He asked that about the auxiliary feature this year. And I was like, let me just come up with a list. Typically, those are arranged by Michael Clash. And I don't know if it's because I just grew up with Clash arrangements.
We all did.
Right? With the Garfield and then what he did here and what he does at Crown. I don't really care. If Mike's doing it, I'm sure it's going to come out great. But I would say the one that was on the list that I think is just gorgeous is Michael Giacchino's Home from Lost.
Oh.
It struck my ear. I think I had seen Lost, but I hadn't really noticed that music. And then I watched Lost again a few years after that. I'm like, that's where he got that.
So I don't know how much of a difficult question this is going to be, but is there a band or an ensemble that you would love to perform with that you haven't, or that you would love to teach?
Well, again, I don't really perform it much anymore. But if you had a time machine.
There you go. Yeah.
I'd go back and be in the cadets. Anywhere from 87 through 93. I would start me at 12 and I'll finish there. But teach, my specialty is beginners. I love teaching beginners. So If someone would set up a really well-funded beginner
Yeah.
band and needs a color guard instructor, I am there because I love working with people and helping them explore color guard from zero.
And last, but certainly not least, is there a favorite band story you like to tell?
Yeah, what my favorite is when someone comes to me at band camp and is like, I don't think this is for me. Before we even get to the first ensemble rehearsal, which is when everybody's on the field together. Granted, that first color guard weekend, we come in on Friday and then we don't have our first ensemble until Monday. It's hard. It's intense. It's really a lot.
And there's probably no context for it.
Yep. And so and we're very much in a bubble. We're in our own little place, just trying to get them caught up so that they can go and do ensemble. I tell them my story of how I didn't join the band my freshman year or my sophomore year. How I really, really, really regret not having those 2 years. I had 2 years, and then I taught for 6 years, and I have many, many years of UMMB with me, but I really want those 2 years back. I really wish I had done it because I was all caught up in the show of it or whatever I thought it was going to be on the field, and I was not even thinking at all about the friendships. About the experiences with the other people, I had amazing friends. I lived in the dorm. I sang, I was in the choir. I did things, but it was not the same as being in the band or having those 2 more years with George. I wish I had those. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't because everybody has their own reasons for why they want to do it. A lot of the time it's, I just left my home and I'm in college and I'm exhausted and I don't want to do this anymore because this is really hard and so forth. But I try to share my story to say, and they say, well, maybe I'll come back next year. And most often they don't. Yeah. And I'm like, let me try to explain to you that every homecoming, when my friends come back, it is the best time. My best friends are still my band friends from the first year that I was in band. And I would say probably at least 85% of UMass band alumni can say the same thing. Yep. Their best friends are their band friends. So maybe the doing of the band part is hard right now, but if you just wait a few more days, it'll definitely get easier. It's not going to get harder. It will get easier. But you're also going to get all of those intangibles. You're going to meet all of those people. You're going to find someone who's in your chem class. You're going to find someone who's, wants to do SGA with you or whatever, because we're all here. But there's no other social and performing arts outlet like the marching band. So I guess that's my favorite band story.
It would have worked on me had I required it.
I mean, I wish someone had said it to me, honestly.
Well, I so appreciate you making the time to come on and have this conversation. We've been talking about this for, I don't know, ever, I think, relatively speaking. But life careens onward, and you're a busy person, and you have an important thing to do. And you have an office with all kinds of framed things on the wall that have to do with where you've been.
And a flamingo. You see that flamingo back there?
I was noticing the flamingo, and I was wondering if there was a story behind that.
The flamingo, that was one of the props from last year. It bobs up and down. And we had 6 of them and with dancers, and they all broke. Except for that one. That was the original. But they all was like, they're meant for being on your lawn.
And now you know the rest of the story. Anyway, music educator, color guard, and visual designer and instructor, and all-around good egg, Chris Sirard. What a treat to have you on here and to learn things about you that years later I still somehow didn't know.
It was fun, Rob. Thanks a lot.
That conversation was quite literally 18 months in the making. We've been talking about setting it up since the actual very beginning of this project. Worth the wait, I think. I hope you do too. After this brief fermata, more BandWagon is on the way.
Here comes the dogfight. This episode's dogfight is a nod to what time of year it is, for me at least. It's about to be late July, which means my annual return to the Drum Major Academy thing. This summer, as it happens, will be my 25th summer out there on the fields or parking lots of some local university or other, helping high schoolers who in weeks or sometimes days will become the drum majors of their high school bands, helping them to prepare for the arm waving and the command calling and the perhaps even getting a moment to teach their bands something. My first DMA staff experience was in July of 1999. Accounting for a couple of summers, one in which COVID shut the world down anyway, and one in which the experience of avoiding COVID meant that I wasn't as comfortable throwing myself back out into the world of lots of people, sometimes in very close quarters. The math works. It has been, and I look forward to it continuing to be, a blast. I've talked in this space about the fact that not only is it a remarkable teaching space, but for longtime staff, DMA is also an opportunity for old friends to reconnect after not getting to see each other terribly often. Speaking of Caitlin Clark and Kate Martin and reunions and such. And this week-long example of Old Home Week is by turns sentimental and silly. But it's worth it to hold fast to the point of this DMA thing, which is to help future band leaders toward that place where they're comfortable doing it. Famously, peer leadership is a beast, no matter what age you are, but especially as a young person. And as the great Dr. Tim Lotzenheiser has commented, many times aiming that commentary toward a group of DMA students, we really have no business putting 17-year-olds in charge of other 17-year-olds. And not everybody who auditions for drum major and gets the position starts out being a confident person. There are always shy persons in our Drum Major Academy student populations. Sometimes I feel like it might be more important to prepare the confident ones for the inevitable moments when they will be knocked down a peg or two, but our instinct is to look for the reticent ones. One story from my previous 24 summers with DMA stands out in my mind. I wrote about it 13 years ago on my online blog, and here, with some gentle edits, is that story now. The title of the story was, and is, New Rachel. Even though I don't teach at as many DMA clinics nationwide as some of my colleagues, I see a rather large number of future drum majors every summer. And I certainly don't get to work individually with every single one of them. Here and there, I'll encounter a vet back for another DMA week, and I'll remember breaking down their conducting video or writing a quick comment about their visual signals clarity on a squad competition score sheet, but it's usually helpful if they jog my memory a bit. So the story I'm thinking of is definitely out of the ordinary. That's why I like it so much. During the summer of 2011, one of the members of my squad competition company, which consisted of 4 6-member squads, also ended up in one of my TV rooms, which is where we screen and evaluate the video of students' conducting patterns that we recorded earlier in the day. Rachel, although that wasn't even close to being her real name, was a very nice young woman, but let's just say that if you'd opened the dictionary to the word meek, you might have seen her picture. Diminutive to begin with, she was very, very quiet and a bit tentative looking, as if she were more than a bit intimidated by the intensity of the proceedings, and maybe feeling like she was in over her head. This is not uncommon. But she participated in every activity and departed the DMA clinic at the end of the week clutching the certificate that confirmed that she'd done the work. I wondered how her season would go. Fast forward a year to the start of the 2012 DMA clinic at that same location. Sometime during the first day, I crossed paths with Rachel. She stuck out her hand, and I shook it, and it was very honestly the firmest handshake I'd experienced since about Mother's Day. So, I asked, how'd things go last year? Great, she said, making the kind of eye contact that made me feel as if she were cheerily staring me down, even though I had about 5 inches on her. A couple of sentences later, I definitely got the idea that she was about to have a terrific second DMA experience, one that would use her very positive high school band leadership experience as a foundation upon which to build. She was still the same person, but very different. Throughout that week, I saw Rachel darting around, connecting and interacting with many more people than just the 5 in her own squad, and seeming to be having a great time. When I mentioned it to a couple of my staff colleagues, they concurred. They remembered her from the previous summer, and they'd noticed the new Rachel. We do encourage DMA students to keep in touch with us throughout the fall marching season, to let us know how it's going, to crow about their successes, or to ask for help if they need it. But we don't often get to actually see them go from point A to point B, from being an understandably nervous person upon whom the drum major title seems to weigh heavily, to being an experienced and confident student leader prepared to befriend and support yet another freshman who might otherwise have quit band. During that 2012 DMA week, I got to actually see that transition, or at least see the evidence that proved it had happened. It was a happy reminder about why teaching, in spite of all those peripheral complications that are thrown at it, might just still be the best job in the world. Next week, straddling the end of July and the beginning of August, I will start and finish my 25th summer, actually my 42nd week-long clinic, since some years I taught in Massachusetts and other years I also taught in eastern Pennsylvania as well. And as always, I'll be on the lookout for students who are about as shy as I am, and perhaps there will be a vet from 2024 who will be the next new Rachel. Okay, one last grand pause. Hydrate, gush and go. And then we'll wrap things up for this episode. Thanks for continuing to listen. To wrap up this week, let's take the CODA. For the CODA, the next BandWagon episode will drop, barring unforeseen circumstances, on the 4th of August, which can only mean one thing in the band world. It's DCI Finals week. Now, I never marched with any drum corps. I didn't really know what that was until very late in my college marching life when, well, long story short, I finally did figure out what all those maroon jackets being worn by a lot of my bandmates signified, the ones that said cadets on the back. Whoopsie. So, if I have drum corps stories, they're vicarious ones, since I've known plenty of people who marched or taught or were assistants of some kind with drum and bugle corps of various kinds and of various pedigrees, or they're stories generated by my now nearly 4 decades of attending corps shows live, or at the movies, or on YouTube, once that became possible. So next week, yeah, I'll tell a couple of those. Stand ye back. And that's a wrap for this episode of BandWagon. Thanks as always for downloading and listening. BandWagon was written, researched, and produced by your humble host. Musical interludes were produced by Hammerton Media from source material largely by John Philip Sousa. You can listen to more episodes at the pod's website, heyband.podbean.com. Please give me feedback, let me know what you like or what you think might change. You can do that using the email address heybandwagon@yahoo.com or leave a 90-second voice message by going to speakpipe.com/heybandwagon. Be aware that I do reserve the right to include your message on the podcast unless you ask me otherwise. Those contact links and links to this episode's news items, conversation topics, and my interview guest, Chris Sirard, can be found in our show notes, as can a link to BandWagon's merch store thanks to the good folks at TeePublic. Please share the show on social media, and thank you for that. If you enjoy this podcast, please do share it in the direction of someone whom you think might not be a listener yet. Word of mouth really is the best recruiting tool. And to keep up with the podcast, subscribe to BandWagon on the Podbean app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are sold. For now, take care, stay in touch, stay in tune, and we'll do this all again in a fortnight. I'm Rob Hammerton. Drop spin, drop spin, drop spin, drop spin, drop spin.